To say I was nervous, sitting there in the upscale bar of the nicest restaurant in Westport, would be an understatement. I was already halfway through my first martini, Grey Goose, straight up, olives, and she wasn't even late yet. And she was always late, so I knew I would be on number 2 before she walked in the door. I couldn't help wondering what she would look like. Had the years been kind to her? And what would she think of me? As it was, I was so much older than her. Would she still find me attractive? I was never lacking in confidence, but still, I always found it hard to believe that she had ever been attracted to me in the first place. Of course, chemistry is never purely physical, and what we had, well, it certainly wasn't ordinary. As I waited and drank, I found myself thinking back to the first moment we had met. 10 years earlier, I was the chief operating officer of a large hedge fund in New York City. Everything about me said alpha male, the collegiate wrestling, the Ivy League law school, the big job on Wall Street. No one would have, or could have, known my secret, the part of me I had kept hidden for so many years, the part that only my mother had known about, until this young woman had walked through my office door and into my life. I was interviewing to fill a position for the head of investor relations. Her resume indicated that she was fully qualified, prior experience at another large firm, an MBA, and great references. She had grown up in Maine, and gone to school there as well, so I was expecting something of a country girl, at least in appearance. When she walked into my conference room and sat down for the interview, I was taken aback by how pretty she was. Long blonde hair, a disarming smile, delicate cheekbones, and the most stunning, cerulean blue eyes. But in spite of her beauty, her look was, appropriately, understated. After all, this was Wall Street, not Madison Avenue. And the details, yes, back to my secret in a bit, but suffice it to say for now, I noticed everything: the modest but expensive Ferragamo navy pumps, the conservative but flattering suit, the Tiffany sterling silver ball earrings, the pearls, the nails that were short but manicured, with a coat of the palest pink polish, ballet slippers. A little lip gloss, a little blush, a little mascara. The whole look said Talbot's, or maybe inclined, tasteful, understated, feminine, but not overly girly or expensive. Aside from her obvious physical beauty, there was nothing about any of this package that was remarkable. An ambitious sorority girl from a good school with good grades, who was trying to make it in the Big Apple. Except for one thing, a thing that 99.9% of guys in my position would not notice. Highlighting those limpid blue eyes, on her upper lids delicately, perfectly applied liquid black eyeliner. In a subtle way, it changed her whole look, but more than that, it made a statement. Or maybe it was, as they say in politics these days, a kind of dog whistle statement only heard, or in this case seen, by those who would know. Unintimidated by either me or her surroundings, she stared right at me, making meaningful eye contact, and I literally shuddered. Her look seemed to confirm the thoughts flashing through my head, as if she were saying to me, yes, everything about my look says nice girl, right? Understated, professional young lady. But I can see right away that you noticed the eyeliner. What do you think it says about me? That I have a little bit of the bad girl in me, that I really love glamour and makeup, even though I have to stifle it in this environment? That I like sex? Can you really glean all of that from noticing a bit of eyeliner? I shook myself out of my momentary reverie. Of course, I couldn't possibly know that's what she was thinking. And it was absurd to infer all that from noticing her eye makeup. Even if, as it turned out, I was completely right. Of course, I hired her. How could I not? I mean, I knew it was risky to hire someone who gave me the unnerving feeling that she could peer into my soul, but the temptation to be in the presence of someone like this was irresistible. If she turned out to be not just preternaturally perceptive, but also manipulative or narcissistic or a little sociopathic, I was going to be in big trouble. Because, if I was honest with myself, wasn't I hiring her precisely because I thought that this was a person with whom I could share my hidden side? So, yes, she would know my secrets, and that would leave me vulnerable and exposed. On the other hand, she wasn't the only one with intuition. I instantly felt that I knew this person, and aside from all the sexy and alluring qualities I was picking up on, I felt the presence of a good and kind soul. Fortunately, I was right about that as well. It wasn't long before Linda was ensconced at her desk directly outside my office, and directly in my line of sight, with her desk facing my office window. Once people start settling into a new environment and start feeling at home, their real selves, rather than their interview persona, tends to emerge, and that was certainly true for Linda. She seemed to love applying lip gloss, and would do so frequently throughout the day. Was it my imagination, or was she really staring intently in my direction every time she did so? One afternoon, after one of her little private performances, a private performance in full view of the entire office, I decided to confront her. I glanced around the office, and it seemed that everyone around us was busy on the phone, or gazing at their computer screens. I sauntered over to her desk and quietly and casually said, "You really love your lip gloss." I felt my heart beating. That was a fairly personal, even if joking, remark to make, especially to a new, female and more junior employee. She could have responded tersely, or not at all, but instead, she picked up the ball and ran with it. She smiled her beautiful smile and said, "Oh, you noticed." As if there were any way I couldn't, with her sitting outside my office staring at me, and applying her lip gloss 10 times a day. "Yep," she said, "I'm a certified lip gloss addict." She giggled and added, "I belong to LGA Lip Gloss Addicts Anonymous. And you know what we say at our meetings, it takes one to know one." Now I was blushing madly. Did Linda just imply that I was a lip gloss addict as well? Just because I noticed how frequently she applied? She giggled again and said, "Oh, you seem flustered. Does that mean I'm right?" I sputtered, "Of course not." But I felt like I was standing in front of her with no clothes on. Linda smiled sweetly and said, "Don't worry, your secret's safe with me. And if you ever want to borrow any, I have tons." She reached over, opened up her large purse and showed me the inside. I was astonished. There must have been 20 lip glosses and lipsticks in there. I was really embarrassed, but told myself, she couldn't possibly know how her words were affecting me. She was just being playful. I figured the best approach was to jokingly go along, so I said, "Well, that's a relief. I'm sure, since you are a fellow member of LGA, you'll keep my little secret between us." She was happy to see me playing along, and assured me that my secret was safe. I went back into my office, and even though it was ridiculous, I couldn't help thinking, did she somehow really know my secret? That couldn't be. It was Friday evening, early summer, and people tended to leave the office a little earlier than usual. Our offices were in Midtown Manhattan, right by all the expensive shopping on 57th Street and Madison Avenue. It was always fun to take a break at lunch and window shop Chanel, Louis Vuitton, Prada. It was all right there, along with the immaculately dressed and coiffed customers from around their world. After work, it was always a pleasant stroll to Grand Central Station. I said my goodbyes to the people still in the office, and Linda said, "I'm just packing up. Can I walk with you?" "Sure," I said, with that slight bit of anticipation in my stomach. This would be a first. I would be out of the office with Linda, even if it was just walking to the train. As we walked, Linda seemed relaxed, commenting on the outfits of many of the young women we passed. There is no fashion show quite like New York City in the early summer, when the young women combine the sophistication of Paris with exposing the extra skin of LA. Many a middle-aged man has bumped into other people on the street, looking at sights he shouldn't be. But this time, I had a running color commentary. "Oh, those shoes are to die for. Louboutins. She's got great legs, but that skirt is pretty short. She must work in advertising. That's a fabulous haircut, must be a fortune. And on she went. I was really enjoying her banter, but it was occurring to me that Linda seemed perfectly comfortable chatting with me as if I were one of her girlfriends. The feeling was both exhilarating and emasculating at the same time. Or, I thought to myself, was it exhilarating precisely because it was emasculating? We got to Grand Central. The truth was, this walk had been the highlight of my day, maybe my week, and I didn't want it to end. On the other hand, I was her superior, and I couldn't risk putting her in the uncomfortable position of feeling like she had to accept if I asked her to have a drink, so I resisted the temptation to do so. I paused in the great hallway of the train station as we got ready to head to our separate tracks. "Well," I said, "I feel like I got quite an education in fashion in the 15 minutes it took us to walk here." "Oh, don't be so modest," Linda said. "I have a feeling you know a lot more than you're letting on. Am I right? And if so, why do you hide it? Is it somehow unacceptable for a man to know about women's fashion?" I started stuttering again, saying something like, "I'm not sure this is the right place." When she cut me off and said, "You're right. It's not the right place. Come on, boss, buy me a cocktail at the Oyster Bar." With that, she slipped her arm through mine and led me across the hall to one of New York's great landmark watering holes. Once again, Linda managed to evoke in me the simultaneous feeling of exhilaration and the feeling that I was being led like a sheep to the slaughter. The Oyster Bar is downstairs, a cavernous place, dimly lit, with vaulted ceilings. Just being there feels slightly illicit, like being in a speakeasy from the 1930s. We found a small table in the corner and I ordered a Chardonnay for Linda and decided to treat myself to a Lashoff, a very large, very strong Belgian beer that has been brewed for 600 years by the Trappist monks. One bottle was equivalent to 4 or 5 ordinary beers. Linda smiled approvingly when the waiter delivered our drinks. She took a sip of her Chardonnay, and I immediately noticed the lipstick print on her glass. Ever since I had been a young boy, that image for me was freighted with meaning and eroticism. I remembered watching my mother sip her wine at a restaurant, seeing that lipstick imprint, and thinking it was so sexy and sophisticated. "So," I said, "are you just a member of the LGA or are you also a member of the LAA?" It took her a moment, but she picked up on what I was asking. "Oh," she said, "that's very astute of you. And you are quite correct, lipstick is my real vice. Lip gloss is for amateurs. Of course, my favorite thing is combining the two, but that's another story. And how about you? Are you partial to lipstick as well? From some of your comments and questions, I gather you know much more about the subject than the average guy." She smiled that enticing smile, the cat playing with the mouse, and I wondered how much I should share. I hesitated and took a large gulp from my beer. I was a little shocked by how forward she was, as her hand reached across the table and grabbed mine, and she said, "Come on, won't it feel good to share? I promise you can trust me." I inhaled deeply, and threw caution to the wind. "Well, there's not that much to tell." I smiled and, imitating those people who were dragged before the McCarthy Committee to testify about their communist ties, said, "I am not, nor have I ever been, a member of the LGA or the LAA." I thought, she's too young to even get the reference. In any event, I paused and she said, "But?" And I continued, well, let's just say my mother could have been a charter member." Linda's face lit up. She was nothing if not intuitive, and instantly knew where I was going. "Ah," she said. "And did Mommy need someone to play with? No sisters at home?" Now I was blushing furiously. "That's correct," I said. She was a single mom, and I was an only child. In her younger days, she had been a model, and even later, when I was 10 or 11, she was strikingly beautiful. I smiled ruefully and added, "In fact, she looked a bit like someone we know." I continued, It all started innocently enough. She would like me to keep her company in her bedroom while she sat at her vanity and applied her makeup. The truth was, I was transfixed by the whole process. It all seemed so beautiful, and I don't know, intimate. By sitting with her as she did her face, I felt like we were sharing something private together. Linda asked, "So, were you in love with your mother?" I smiled and replied, "Oh, all boys are in love with their mothers. But it usually ends at around age 5 or 6 or so." I guess I was a little slow, because at that age, yes, I was still entranced by her. Anyway, our little ritual gradually changed over time. At some point, Mother started casually explaining all the things she was doing. Of course it was silly, because why would a boy need to know which eyeshadow goes with which lipstick, for example, or how to properly apply blush? But I loved listening to her, and the truth was, I found myself interested in what she was saying. I think at some point she justified her little lessons by saying, "You know, Bobby, the greatest makeup artists in the world are men. Maybe you could become one." I stopped talking, and Linda took advantage of the pause to order us another round. I was way ahead of her on the drinking, which seemed fine with both of us. It was almost as if I were intentionally getting drunk to make it easier for me to tell her, as if I really did want to unburden myself. "Why do I think there's more?" she asked. I smiled and joked, "Smart girl. I knew there was a reason why I hired you." She smiled back and said, "I thought it was because of the eyeliner." I was stunned. Even in my slightly inebriated state, I realized that we had never discussed the eyeliner. How could she have known? Not that I didn't know it before, but her remark just confirmed for me that I was in the presence of someone with an extraordinary sense of intuition. She saw my reaction and said, "I was joking." Pause. "I mean, you didn't really hire me because of my eyeliner, did you?" My turn to have some fun. "Kind of," I said sheepishly. Linda let out a big belly laugh. "Oh, great! It wasn't the MBA, it was the Lancome?" "Pretty much," I said. We both burst out laughing. Linda looked up at me and said, "But things didn't stop there, did they?" I nodded, and continued with my confessional. I can remember the exact moment when it happened. I was sitting on the floor by her vanity, just kind of lazily keeping her company. She was applying her lipstick. I remember the pretty green case, it was Revlon Moon Drops. Watching Mother applying her lipstick was an exercise in sensuality. She was always so careful. I could tell that she enjoyed the act of applying. As she looked at her face in her makeup mirror, she said to me, "I just love this shade. I think coral is such a flattering shade for our skin tone." "Yes, Linda," she said. She turned away from her makeup mirror, smiled her prettiest, most flirtatious smile and said, "You like?" Of course I liked. I loved, and told her so. And then it happened. She said, "Honey, come up off the floor and come here for a moment." I got up and walked over to her. She said, "Close your eyes." I was afraid, but excited, and I did what I was told. I could feel her applying the lipstick to my lips. It was the most terrifying and exciting moment of my life. I actually couldn't believe what was happening. I sort of felt like I was supposed to protest, so I did, saying, "But Mommy, boys aren't supposed to wear lipstick." And she giggled and said, "Well, honey, that's true. But we're just having a little fun here, and it's our special secret, okay? Wouldn't it be fun to see if you can look like Mommy?" And of course, I did want to look like Mommy, and it was fun, so I let her continue. When I opened my eyes and looked in her makeup mirror, I was completely entranced. I saw a pretty girl staring back at me, and I fell in love with the image. I had Linda's undivided attention, and I continued. Of course, that was just the beginning. Mother quickly moved on to other makeup: blush, mascara, eyeshadow, eyeliner. For weeks, I would come home from school and we would begin our game. She would try all types of different looks, from subtle makeup that was appropriate for a teen girl to fully made up, dramatic looks. She would do hers the same way, and we would pose in front of the mirror together, mother and daughter. It was like I was two people: the ordinary boy who got up every morning and went to school, and the girl who spent her afternoons playing dress up with her mother. Eventually she got me clothes for these occasions, saying that her pretty girl needed something appropriate to wear. I remember I had a little short denim skirt, a pink cashmere sweater, a pretty sundress, the works. I would get home from school and go up to my room, and the outfit that mother wanted me to change into would be laid out on my bed. At one point, she even got me a training bra. Well, I didn't think I could surprise Laura, but it seemed as if I had. Her eyes grew wide. "Your mother put you in a bra?" "Yep," I quietly said. "She did." And the truth was, I loved it. This was more than she was expecting. She said, "So, how did it end?" "I mean, I assume it did end? You're obviously not transgender." "Well, I started reaching puberty. And two things happened. One, I started becoming more boyish looking and less pretty, which was frustrating and painful to me. And two, I discovered girls. I had a big crush on Charlene Kiley, and one day she asked me to walk her home after school. Let's just say that Mommy Dearest was not happy with me missing our daily play date, and even less happy to find that she had competition. I guess I finally had my much-delayed rebellion. Things basically ended shortly thereafter. There was a long silence. Linda grabbed my hand again and said, "Bobby, that's an amazing story. And from my point of view, it goes a long way towards explaining why you are such a sensitive guy. She may have had her selfish reasons for doing it, but I believe your mother did you a favor by nurturing your feminine side." "Thanks, Linda. That side of you is still in there, somewhere. Isn't it? You poor thing. You must miss your girl side terribly." Another long silence, and I quietly said, "Yes, I suppose so. And all kidding aside about the eyeliner, you saw something in me that you thought would recognize it, didn't you?" "Yep. I think that's true." "Oh, Bobby, phew." With that, she leaned over and gently kissed me on my lips. I felt her lip gloss transfer a little to my lips. She smiled, took her pinky finger, and spread it around. "There. So pretty. Coral's not the only color that looks good on you. Pink is pretty too. I think we can have lots of fun together, sweetie." Later that night, I did something I had sworn I never would do, driving the short distance from the train station to my house, completely inebriated. I was lucky I made it home in one piece. Laying in my bed that night, I assumed I was too drunk to have an erection, but no. The images of Linda, sitting outside my office, staring at me while she applied her lip gloss, interspersed with flashes of my mother doing the same, in my drunken state, the two women were becoming intertwined in my head. Finally, I came, a crashing orgasm, and immediately fell into a drunken slumber. Things changed with us. I knew that having an outright affair with Linda was risking career suicide, and we limited our contact outside of the office. But our everyday interactions were suffused with a passionate, sexual energy. Every conversation seemed to be laden with hidden meaning. There were times when I just felt like ripping her clothes off right there in the office and having sex with her. One afternoon, I left the office for a break and walked the 2 blocks to Bendel's, an upscale boutique department store on Fifth Avenue. I walked into the cosmetics section and walked over to the Chanel counter. Much like my interactions with Linda, being a man in the makeup department got my heart racing. It felt like all of my senses were on high alert. A pretty, well-dressed, middle-aged woman came over to me and asked me if she could help. I told her that I wanted to buy my girlfriend a lipstick. The woman was very accommodating, helping me pick not only the right shade for Linda's complexion, but advising me on buying all the accoutrements, including lip liner and gloss. Because it was Chanel, everything went together perfectly, and everything was expensive. The whole time, I got the suspicion that the salesperson didn't quite know whether to believe it was really for my girlfriend, or if perhaps it was really for me. She even put various shades on my arms so I could see how they went with my skin tone. Her uncertainty was fine with me. The ambiguity made the whole shopping experience that much more exciting. I got back to my office, so excited to give Linda her gift. I needed to be subtle about it, because it wouldn't exactly be appropriate for the chief operating officer to be buying lipstick for the head of investor relations. Still, the whole package was small enough for me to casually leave it on her desk as I walked by. She was so excited. She gave me an extra special demonstration from her desk. The fact that I was holding a fairly serious meeting in my office at the time only made her more eager to put on a show. And that became a new ritual. I would run to Bendel's, buy a lipstick, and leave it for her. Demonstration to follow. It wasn't sex, but it felt like it had the same intensity. In spite of the fact that she was much younger, and that we were from vastly different backgrounds, the bond between us made me feel like we might really overcome the odds and end up together. But the financial crisis happened, and I took a new job and moved away from the area, and we both went our separate ways. Until 2 days before our appointment in Westport, we had not been in contact with each other. She had then contacted me ostensibly about a business question, which I was hoping was just an excuse for her to contact me, and here I was. Once again, Linda had the uncanny effect, before she even appeared, of making me feel like a boy in middle school with a crush on his beautiful teacher. As I sipped the second martini, I saw the front door of the restaurant open, and a gorgeous blonde, a few years older but even more beautiful than the girl I remembered, come sweeping in. She was simply radiating feminine energy. I was smitten with her looks, but would things, after all this time, be the same? She hugged and kissed me, and then said, "Sorry I'm late. I had to make sure my makeup was perfect for you." I smiled with relief. In one sentence, she let me know that she hadn't changed at all, and that she remembered everything. I immediately knew that I was in for a memorable evening, with hopefully much more to come. The feeling that I got when she smiled that beautiful smile, and laughed that beautiful laugh, and told me that she was sorry she was late but that she had to make sure her makeup was perfect for me, that feeling that 6 years had disappeared in an instant, that the incredible chemistry we had once felt hadn't diminished at all, well, dinner proved all of that to be true. I wanted it to last all night, but we both had other places to be. And that was really the problem. We had both spent the past 6 years thinking, what if? Had we somehow let the right person go? But we had also moved on with our lives. Time had moved on for both of us, and our lives were now filled with other people and commitments. Neither one of us would ever think of hurting the person we were with, and neither one of us thought cheating was okay. But what, exactly, was cheating? Obviously having a physical relationship. But what if we met for drinks every now and then, and no one knew? Was that cheating? What about not seeing each other at all, but emailing each other, or speaking on the phone? Was the simple fact of not sharing the existence of the other person with our partners some form of cheating? Emotional infidelity? Or was it okay for couples to have certain parts of their lives remain private from the other? I didn't know the answers. All I knew was that on the one hand, I didn't want to do anything to hurt my partner, but on the other hand, I was craving some contact with Linda. My significant other loved me, and over time had come to know me as well as anyone. But with Linda, it was different. That knowledge was instant, complete, intuitive. She knew me the moment she saw me. We were both wary of sliding down a slippery slope, of finding ourselves doing things we might come to regret, but at the moment, were we also not willing to say, "Great to see you again, have a nice life." We kept a limit on our emails and occasional phone calls, but the truth was, seeing an email from her always made my heart race. And while I loved being a real-world friend to her, talking about mundane events in our lives, whenever the conversation veered towards makeup or other feminine things, I always felt a stirring of excitement. She had a knack for really talking to me like I was a girlfriend. A typical email from Linda, talking about us buying makeup. In order for us to buy something together, we need to determine your skin tone. If you have a warm tone, your skin has deeper undertones of gold and yellow with visible veins appearing greenish. A cool tone means your skin is pale or dark with pink or blue undertones and the veins will normally look bluish. My tone is cool and my contrast is muted, which puts me in the summer category. See link. I actually think this might be you too, but please check to be sure. Your skin has a glow year-round, which is so lovely. Since I tan well, we can share a few lipstick over the summer months. I actually have a coral/salmon NARS lipstick that I bought with high hopes, but it just doesn't go well with my tone even when tan. I'll give it to you the next time we see each other. I explained to her that getting an email like this was both emasculating and an incredible turn-on. I could tell that she was fascinated by the paradox. How could something be both humiliating and erotic? I explained that that was perhaps the distinction between being a sissy and being transgendered. I said, "You know, it's not like I put on a dress and makeup and go out. I don't even do that in the privacy of my home." Linda was curious. "But, is that because you don't like how you'd look?" "Yes," I confessed. "The truth is, if I could somehow magically be made to look like you, it would be an incredible fantasy for me, for the two of us to spend a day shopping, then primping, makeup a little heavy and sexy, getting dressed in our LBDs and sky-high Louboutins, looking totally hot, then going out, say, to a club downtown. As two girlfriends." I smiled and said, "Well, two girlfriends until we got back to our hotel, you know. I don't like boys, but it would be fun to have them try to flirt with us. Then you would nicely let them know we were off limits, because we were a couple." Linda said, "Well, that's really amazing that you say that, because over the weekend I was planning my annual girls' spa weekend, and of course I thought of you, and how much fun you would have with the girls. We wear robes all day and treat ourselves to spa treatments. Then in the evening we get our makeup done. This is done by a makeup artist on staff at the spa, and they usually give you some good tips. This is where I discovered I needed to fill in my brows, and then do a wine tasting and dinner. We bunk up 2 and 3 in a suite, do each other's hair, paint our nails and chit-chat. Wouldn't it be crazy if you wore a wig like a long straight bob, added thick mascara and painted your toenails? You may just fit in. No one would know because the robes are similar to those thick hotel robes, so you can barely tell how large or small someone's breasts are. I think we'd have to shave your legs. Really, the only people who may find out would be the masseuses, but really they would mind their own business as long as you tipped well." Linda couldn't possibly know that she had just verbalized a lifelong fantasy of mine. Well, not just mine, every sissy loves the idea of a slumber party with the girls, or a spa weekend. I said, "Oh Linda, that sounds like so much fun. And I love the fact that you talk as if I could pass, and we could get away with fooling your friends into thinking I was a real girl. But, realistically, I don't think I could pull it off." Linda paused and then said, "Bobby, you've talked about how being embarrassed can actually be exciting for you. I remember that you told me once about how you were shopping with your mother, and she was at the cosmetics counter trying on lipsticks, and she insisted on trying some on you, and how you were mortified but also really excited. Do you remember that?" I quietly said that yes, I did. How could I forget? That incident was seared into my young memory. Linda said, "Well, what if you went as a boy?" I was confused and said, "Linda, what are you talking about?" Well, say you went on your own to the spa for a weekend, the same weekend as us. And let's say we met there, in other words, we act like we didn't know each other. And let's say you were really getting the works, giving your girly side the attention it so badly needs. Let's say we ended up sitting next to each other getting mani pedis. I could tell the girls I met this fabulous, femi guy who I would like to include in our fun. Girls love gay guy friends. But Linda, I'm not gay. They don't need to know that, silly. This would be so perfect. You could do everything with us, including getting your makeup done. The girls might tease you as little, but if I am understanding the sissy thing right, you might actually enjoy that. I was quiet. I finally said, "Oh, Linda, I don't know." Then she pulled out her ace. And, of course, we'd get to spend the weekend together. You could hang out in our suite all night. I think you'd like the way I look in my nightie. She giggled and added, "The only problem with that plan is I have a feeling the girls would soon realize you weren't gay after all." "Oh well, we'll tell them you're bi." Now I was speechless, picturing her in a sexy baby doll, with her hair and makeup all done. And to finish me off, she said, "Of course, I have a really cute nightie that you could borrow as well." It was amazing to me how this woman, with whom I had not spent any time in 6 years, could seemingly tap directly into my deepest fantasies. Finally, I said, "Linda, are you really serious?" "Absolutely," she replied. "Okay," I said, "let me think about it for the weekend, but I think I'm in." Linda clapped. She was so excited. She said, "I'm going to call the spa this weekend and make sure that they are happy to cater to men. Well, men who want girl treatments. I want to make sure that they will be happy to wax your legs and do your brows and paint your nails and do your makeup, just like one of the girls." It all sounded amazing, and of course the best part would be having Linda there to take care of me. I was ready to take the leap. The next day, Linda called the Norwich Inn and Spa, and asked to speak to the manager of the spa. "Hi, this is Linda Bass. My girlfriends and I are really looking forward to our annual weekend at the inn." "Hi, Ms. Bass, lovely to speak with you. I remember you from last year. You and your girlfriends are my favorite type of guest, beautiful and fun." Linda blushed a little at the compliment. "Thanks, Marie. You guys do a great job. Listen, I have a bit of a delicate inquiry. I have a friend, and well, although he spends most of the year as your typical alpha male hedge fund guy, he has shared this other side with me." Marie seemed to pick right up on what Linda was saying. "A feminine side?" "Yes, that's right. Anyway, he's not going to be in my group, but I said I would inquire on his behalf. If he wanted the works, just like one of your splurging female guests, not just massages, or even facials, but mani-pedi with colored nail polish, full makeup, the whole 9 yards, would you guys be amenable to that?" Marie replied, "Not only would we be amenable, we would be welcoming. I have a brother, ex-brother, I still make that mistake, who is transgender, and so I'm very sensitive to treating people the right way, the way they want to be treated. I can promise you that I would personally look after your friend, and that he will have a fabulous, feminine weekend." Linda was overjoyed, and couldn't wait to give me the news. As a rule, we tried not to text each other, but some things just couldn't wait. "Pack your prettiest panties, princess," her message said. "We are going to have a weekend to remember." To say I was nervous would be a great understatement. It's one thing to fantasize about getting the girly treatment, spending a weekend being pampered and made up, and hanging out with a group of girls. It's another thing to actually do it. On the other hand, what did I have to lose? Well, my dignity, I guess, but this seemed worth the risk. And of course, I would get to spend the weekend with Linda. It was a month before the spa weekend, and Linda and I were chatting. Listen, Sissy, I know you are going as a boy, and not trying to pass, but still, I want you to look as lovely and feminine as possible. I know that's the point of the spa weekend, to make you look and feel feminine, but there are some things you can do beforehand to get you ready. First, I want you to start dieting today. I want to see you with a nice, svelte figure by the weekend. See if you can lose 15 pounds. No cookies, understand? Next, let your hair grow. Same with your nails. I pouted a little. You know, I started dieting as soon as we talked about the weekend. I thought you'd notice. And on the nails, actually, I said, quietly, I was thinking about nail extensions. I've always fantasized about having long nails. Of course, I noticed, she lied. I just want you to keep it up. Okay, on the nails, that sounds great. Just don't get them too long. I don't want you looking like some trashy girl. To continue, I want you completely shaved from head to toe, before you get there. I think you have great legs, and I wouldn't want to ruin the appearance of your pretty painted toes peeking out from under your robe with gross hair. Now, what about getting your ears pierced? Oh, Linda, I don't know. I love to wear earrings, especially dangly ones, but can't I just go with ones that have a screw back? I don't know if I'm ready to be out in the world with pierced ears. Well, I hope you change your mind, because I got you a little gift. I had been thinking about pearl studs for you, because they are just so classy and feminine, but when I saw these, I just couldn't resist. They are perfect for my sissy. I think you need to get your ears pierced and wear these. You can always take them out and let the holes close up after the weekend. Linda handed me a small box and I opened it to find the most adorable pair of earrings. She was right, they just screamed sissy. I hugged Linda and she continued. Now, although I think we will spend most of our time in robes, you still need something to show up in, to leave in, and for dinner Saturday night. I have some ideas. I think I would like to see you showing up with wedges, white capris, and maybe a crop top or something off the shoulder. Maybe we should meet at Saks and see what we can find for you. And of course I want to see you in pretty panties. And I have been thinking you might really enjoy wearing a bra with gel inserts. I know you are there as a boy, but that might make it even more fun. What do you think? All of this was incredibly frightening to me, but also a dream come true. I pictured myself getting ready for my spa weekend, shaving and moisturizing my legs, chest and underarms. Slipping a cute, lacy pair of panties up my smooth legs. Shimmying into a pair of tight, stretchy white capris. Slipping into a pair of cute rope-soled wedges with a 3-inch heel. Putting on a bra. OMG, I was really getting excited thinking about the whole thing. A bra, with gel inserts. I had always thought of myself as a boy with a boy part, but I had often wondered what it might be like to have a cute, girlish figure with hips and some curves up top. The idea of wearing gel inserts, with the feel and weight of my own flesh, as if I temporarily had breasts, was completely intoxicating. Oh, Linda, it's all incredibly exciting, but I'm really scared. Listen, she said. This is your chance to really go for it, so I think you should. I will be there to help you. Okay, I said. As usual, I'm putty in your hands. The next week, after work, we met at Saks to do some shopping. I think Linda was having as much fun as I was, picking out outfits for me. Since I was not trying to pass, the focus was on feminine but androgynous. After all, these were outfits I was going to be showing up at the spa and leaving in. Linda wanted to see what I came up with on my own, so I wandered around the juniors department. I found a pair of white capris and a loose, striped, tunic-wide top. It was definitely a little feminine but theoretically something a boy could wear. While I had been browsing, Linda had been doing the same. She came back with some items. She looked at what I had selected and said, "Well, that's not bad, Sissy. In fact, I think you should keep it for after the spa weekend." But I like what I picked out a little more. She handed me her bundle and said, "Go into the dressing room and try it on." When I got into the dressing room, I gasped a little. Linda had definitely taken it up a notch. On the other hand, the outfit was adorable. I shyly stepped out of the dressing room and Linda giggled and clapped. "Oh, Sissy, this is perfect. I think I've really outdone myself." I was embarrassed, but the truth was, I loved the outfit. Next up was something a little dressier for dinner. I was wondering if Linda would try to get me into a dress. Yes, there was a part of me that hoped she would, but she was sticking with our theme of feminine and androgynous, but not female. We ended up trying to decide between two outfits. The first was a little more casual black slacks and a sheer, polka dot blouse. The second was a little more dressy and, if anything, even more sissy, high-waisted, flaring white slacks with a silk blouse with a big bow in front. Linda said we should take both and decide what to wear at the last minute. As usual, I agreed. For my last outfit, I insisted on something a little more toned down. After all, I would be leaving the spa in this and heading back to civilization. Linda conceded the point and let me pick something feminine but slightly more low-key. After our purchases, Linda took me up to the lingerie section. "Listen, Sissy, my gift to you is going to be to buy you some pretty bras and panties, but I need to know your size. Let's have you try a training bra on, so I'll know what size to get." I was mortified. "Try a bra on in the department store?" Linda insisted, much to the amusement of the cute salesgirl. "I'm glad you listened to me and lost weight," Linda said. "Looks like a 38 will fit you. Let's see if we can get you down to a 36 by the big weekend." Linda smiled at the salesgirl and said, "Just cut the tags, he'll wear that out." I looked at her like she was crazy and she said, "Sissy, you need to get used to what it feels like. Especially if you are going to graduate to a real bra with gel inserts. Now, be a good girl and just leave the bra on. Anyway, you look so cute in it, I'm having a hard time keeping my hands off of you." I was mortified, but as usual, powerless to resist, especially when she put it that way. I hoped no one would notice it under my shirt, but the truth was, I loved the way it felt. On our way out, we stopped by cosmetics. Linda said, "Don't worry, I'm not going to make you get your makeup done here. I just want some ideas to give the makeup artist for the weekend. For both of us." In fact, Linda ended up getting her makeup done. She looked amazing. I couldn't help thinking back to the original conversation we'd had, where I told her if I could look like her. Linda had a face that was beautiful to start with, but was also one of those faces that lend itself to makeup. With a good makeup artist, she looked spectacular. Jealous? Maybe a little. Linda smiled and said, "Take a picture with your phone so we can show the makeup artist at the spa. Not only do I love this look, but I loved your fantasy about us looking alike. Let's see if the makeup artist can do this for both of us." Linda knew she looked great and was flirting with me a little. She said, "By the way, I hope you're already thinking about how you can explain having brows like these when you get back from our weekend." Her brows did look amazing, but there was no way. She gave me a little kiss on the lips. I could feel her pretty pink lipstick transferring to my lips. She whispered in my ear, "You know, Sissy, life would be so much easier for you if you just got more comfortable with showing the world your real self." I thought, she's got a point. On our way out of Saks, Linda of course had to stop into the Louis Vuitton boutique. While she was shopping, a beautiful young woman was in there doing the same. Linda walked over to me and whispered, "See, this is why I don't want you to cut your hair a little longer, and I think we can get that look for you. Oh, Bobby, you're going to look amazing. This will be the best weekend ever." I furtively glanced over at the pretty young woman who was casually eyeing a clutch that probably cost more than my whole wardrobe. It was true, I could see myself in that haircut. But that, combined with the comment that Linda had just made about my brows, made me realize that perhaps I had been kidding myself about keeping the feminine side inside a box, and just letting her out for one weekend. I had a sneaking suspicion that Sissy was not going to want to be locked up again after being the center of attention for a whole weekend. I put those thoughts away and decided I would worry about Hat later.